All right, my name's Steve. The setup that I've got here is I'm doing it remotely because I thought I had COVID. It was just a cold. But anyway, so I'm filming it here on my laptop. It's going to be ropey because I'm not used to looking at things. My eyeline's going to be off. There's going to be like table shake and all that kind of stuff. But if you bear with me, I've probably got some stuff that you might want to hear. Anyway, I'm an editor and also a camera operator. I learned to edit when I was 18 and I'm 49 now. So that means I've been editing for ages, but it doesn't mean I'm any good. It just means I've been editing for ages. And I also shoot and also do like whatever else. I do storyboarding, and you kind of, as you progress through your career, you end up learning bits about everyone else's jobs. So my focus is editing, but you kind of do everything. What do I love about editing? Nobody asked. Well, the thing that I love about editing is, if you want an analogy of a restaurant, the editor is the chef. You've got your camera operator, that's the person that provides you with the ingredients, but you're the chef, you're the one that's making it. So you want the best ingredients, but the camera operator is just the farmer. Do you know what I mean? You're the chef. People often ask me, they go, Steve, and I say, what? And they say, music. When you're picking music, you just, like, some people like, I'll just lob it. You see this all the time, right? I'll just lob a bed under it. So the music starts, it does exactly the same thing all the way to the end, and then it fades out at the end. Which is fine. That is fine. I never do that. Unless I'm really like, on a tight deadline, I never do that. You should always look for ways for your stuff to be better than everyone else's. So if everyone else does that, you should do something better than that. So I always treat the music that I put to edits as I try and score it. So if I've got an edit and I've got all the interview content down, so I've got a block of, this is the people talking about the bit at the start, this is the bit that, this is where people are talking about the stuff in the middle, and this is where they're talking about the stuff at the end. I won't start GVing it and then whack the music on at the end, because the music tells you about the flow and the pace of the piece. So the next thing I will do before I even GV it is I will then score the music underneath. And you need you're using music to help with the pace and to emphasize certain bits. And no, you should be using music the same as you would use music in a film, to assist what else is going on, not as just some like wallpaper. Choosing music is really difficult because, for a start, you can never really use stuff by bands that you like, unless it's never going to be shown anywhere. So you're kind of going for like commercial libraries and stuff like that. And a lot of the time what you want is stems. So you want, I just need the drums, I just need the bass as a separate thing, I need the top line as a separate thing, I need the and then I can cut it. But you don't get that. For some reason, what they always seem to think is you want a 3 minute and then like a 1 minute and a 30 seconds. Like, as an editor, you can't cut things down, but for some reason they think you can't. So that's what you get when you're choosing the music. It needs to do a lot of things. So it might need to be kind of like contemplative at the beginning, and then sort of discordant in the middle, and then come to like an optimistic, resounding end. Well, you're never going to get that in a search that's like, it says like, what style do you want, country and western? You're like, mate, I don't care. I just need it to do this stuff. So yeah, music's really difficult, and it's also really, really important. And most editors don't spend enough time thinking about it. Something I do, right, is I will find a track that basically does what I need it to do, but then jump into something like GarageBand or Ableton and add things to it. Like I will maybe like sample a bit of just a bass line at the beginning, and I'll make a beat and then in the background I can drop to just that bass line and a beat that I've made, but I'm making it do stuff that I need it to do. Or say you've got a track and it's like, yeah, but the ending's not intense enough, then I'll just put a load of like splash cymbals in like Ableton and like whack that underneath, and I've just kind of brought it up myself. I don't even know if you're allowed to do that, by the way, but that's what I do. Because you will never find the perfect track. So one of the worst things about choosing music is especially if there's like montages in it, or if the whole thing's a montage, you're basically choreographing to that tune that you've selected, so you check with the client. And what I'll often do is I'll do like the first 20 seconds to that music and just send it them and go, you okay with how this is going? Because I need to know now, because what you never want is you get to pretty much finished and then the client's like, yeah, I love it, and now I'm going to show a load of people you didn't know about, and then the feedback comes, the boss doesn't like the music, and you're like, yeah, but the whole edit is hung around that music. You can never 100% get this, but you need to try and identify that you're talking to the person who's going to make all the decisions early doors. You don't want any surprises. So you need to make it clear, go, look, this is the music I'm going with, and after this point, it's going to be a massive job to change it. Imagine this music is the foundation of the house we're building. You then can't just pull it out and swap it. Yeah, music, nightmare. When you're doing color grading, never press auto, or you should grade it. But I'll always hit auto first, because if you hit auto and it looks right, you've just saved yourself a quarter of an hour. Why would you not do that? If you've got a brief and it says we definitely want this shot after this shot and this shot next, and then this goes with this, and you're looking at the timeline and then something surprises you and you're like, I think this works better, it shouldn't do, but it does. Always go with what you think's better, even if it's not to what the client wanted or how it's in the script. That's not how it's supposed to be. But if you think it looks better, because you can always do their version and then do like a B version, say, by the way, I did this, what do you think? They'll give you, if you don't do it, they'll never know. But if you do something, you might surprise them and they'll remember you for that. They'll be like, oh God, he's good, because he took what we had and then he raised it. When I first started, like when it was like 20 or 22, all I was doing was making brews and running cables out and setting lights up. But when I was doing it, I was making sure that they were the neatest cables anyone's ever seen in their life, the tidiest lights, and I made sure that I got the brews right. No one never mixed the brews up. So whatever you're doing, especially as a freelancer, you should make sure that however lowly or crap it is, the job, you're still doing it better than everyone else. Especially when you're starting out, you need to learn that everything's an opportunity to impress people. That can even just be down to attitude and looking like you're really switched on. When I was like 18, I was still just standing around waiting for someone to ask me to do something. You can stand there all day because everyone's too busy. But if you want to stand out, you're switched on and going, is there anything I can do to help? Okay, well, do you mind if I just watch you do this? And are you okay if I ask you questions? And you just be switched on and everything, just be absorbing everything. And if there's nothing needs doing, you should always say, look, do you want me to go and get some coffees and some bagels or whatever? There's always stuff that you can do while you're on site or while you're on the client's time. You're switched on and you're there for them. It's amazing how many people forget that, and especially if you're on a job with a load of people that, like when I'm on a job, I have a laugh. To me, the mark of a professional isn't someone that's like, breaking balls and shouting at people and stuff like that. It's people that are so good that they can have a laugh and still turn out great work because it's effortless. And if you're in an environment where it's happy and everyone's having a laugh and it's relaxed, you get better work, you get better work out of the people that you're working with, you get better performances from actors, everything's better because no one's stressed. The thing is, when you're young and you go into an environment like that, you think everyone's messing about because you don't know what they're doing. Don't be fooled. Yeah, so stay flashy. When you're an editor that's being paid by someone else, speed it's not the most important thing, but it's like if you've got a car, it's probably like one of the wheels. You have to have speed as well as everything else, because there's always a deadline and you're always on the clock. Say you've got, I don't know, a week to edit something. You've always got to buy yourself time. So you need to be fast, making fast decisions from the start, and then you've bought yourself some time in the middle, because it never goes right and there'll always be some sticking point, or there'll be something, you know, it's like restoring an old building or something. You know, there's always going to be unforeseen stuff that's going to take time, and you haven't really got time. And if you've got here's the thing, right? If you've got a client sat next to you and they say, can you just move this to here? You need to just go, brum, bang, it's there. They don't want to see someone that they're paying a day rate, and an expensive day rate, leaning over and like, and just like, that's not how you do it, and it's going to look bad. One of the things you need to nail is shortcuts. It's like anything. If you watch someone playing a piano, it's not the fact that you're not saying the fastest piano player is the best. It's just that they can do fast and not look like it's fast. Like you see someone playing a piano and it's a complicated piece and their hands are moving like lightning. They don't look like they're just playing. That's what editing's like. You should be. It's not the fact that you're lightning fast. You're just editing the way that you should be editing, which is you should be making edit decisions as quickly as you're thinking them. You don't want a lag between your ideas and them appearing on screen. You might have like 10, 15, 20 hours of footage. It's a long, horrible process at times, especially doing documentary stuff. If you were doing any other job, you'd get fast at it. You know, if you're working on a production line, if you're working on the tills at Aldi, you'd just end up lightning fast, and that's how you should be editing. I always use the default Premiere Pro keyboard shortcuts, because you are always going to jump on someone else's system, and if you rely on your own bizarre shortcuts, you're going to be knackered whenever you go anywhere else. But if I'm doing a job and I know there's the thing that I'm going to be doing repetitive, like say you're always going to have to be sub-clipping, I'll just make a keyboard shortcut for that and just be like ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Or I'll even make a macro so that I hit one key that will make a sub-clip from an in and out, and then go to the next clip, launch it, and put an in point at the start, or whatever, and I'll just make a macro for that. So if I'm doing any repetitive task, I am making it as quick as possible and as few key hits as possible. One thing I am not doing is clicky with the mouse, and no one ever wants to see that. No one ever wants to see anyone editing with the mouse. I mean, you got to use the mouse sometimes, but really speaking, especially when you're doing a content cut and you're just burning through interviews, it needs to be two hands on the keyboard. And you don't want to be watching where your hands are going. You need to be watching the screen and the footage. And if you're using the mouse, editing is about beats and timing, and it's a kind of percussive musical process. If you're clicking, you're never going to get into the pace of what you're editing. If you're clicking on a mouse and stop, start, that's why you've got to be fast, because you've got to be watching the thing in real time that you're editing. So you've got to have it. It's got to have like a kind of musicality to how you work. It's not a word processor. You know, it's a hands-on. You've got to get your hands dirty and get into the footage. Yeah. So get quick, learn your shortcuts, and make new shortcuts. Being fast isn't rushing. You're just in the zone, and you need to be in kind of like zone pace. It needs to be like when when you're playing a driving game and you're like, and you feel it. You're like, oh yeah, I'm in the Matrix. You know, you need to be in the zone when you're editing. If you're clicking on the mouse, you're not in the edit. You're still outside. You're not inside it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. The difference between a professional editor, So someone that's, you know, gets paid to do it, that's their job, freelancer. You can drop in anywhere with a bunch of strangers and start editing. The difference between that person and the person that edits their own stuff in the bedroom, it's not even the difference isn't even self-belief. Like I have proper like imposter syndrome. The difference is I've done it before, so I know I'm capable of doing it, so I don't really worry about it. But I get nervous, you know, if I land in a room with people all sat round and it's like, right, start editing, I need to have a little minute where, because stuff can throw you, just like the fact that I'm on a machine that the windows are organised slightly differently to how I have them will completely throw me. I have my setup, I have my screens how I want them, and it's that thing of like in a pressure situation, someone says, what's your phone number? I have no idea, and you can blank really easily, and I still do, and I've been doing it for decades, and I'll still, you know, land in a room with a client and shit myself, and I think you should, because it means you're not like the worst people you ever meet in this business are the people that as soon as you sit down, they start telling you all the telly that they're working on, and they start telling you, I was working at and you're like, yeah mate, you're heading for a fall because you think you're it, and once you think you've made it, or you're just gonna fall off because you're not looking out. I always think the best people are the people that doubt themselves and think, I shouldn't be here, like I'm really out of my depth, because you'll deliver your best work. You'll always stay really focused. You'll never get lazy. You don't think the world owes you a living. You know, I still now have anxiety dreams about working in a factory. I used to work in a factory. When I learned to edit at 18, and then it was 4 years before I did it as a job. And in that time I was on the dole and working in factories, and I still have anxiety dreams about working. I'm back in the factory, I never left. Yeah, and I still think that I shouldn't be doing this. And I don't believe it when people say, Steve's really good, because, and I know this from other people that I know that do different stuff. So people that do, I know a lad that does motion graphics, and he's the best person I've ever seen. His stuff is the best I've ever seen, and he always has the same anxieties that I have, that he doesn't think he's any good. And when people say he's good, he's like, yeah, I'm just doing it right. I'm not doing it, I'm just doing it right. And I'm like, yeah, I just do it right. I'm not brilliant, I'm just doing it how it should be done. But you find out in life that just doing it right is pretty unusual. There's so many people just treading water. So yeah, when you start working as an editor, and especially like freelance, where you're constantly meeting new people and you feel like you're constantly having to prove yourself, and it's you get stage fright, but it keeps you sharp, makes you good. You never get lazy. And you see these people that work in, like, you know, production houses, or they're always doing the same stuff, and they're just flabby. They're just out the game. They don't even know it. You can almost see through them. They're just ghosts. They've just been and gone. You're gonna have to get the scissors in good style on this. When you're still a student, you think that the only careers that are worth having are, like, you know, working in features or working in telly, and everything else is just, you know, I'm not doing corporates, because you're kind of bothered about, you know, you want to be able to tell people that you're working on, you know, high-end stuff and all that kind of thing. And I remember when I was 18, I was editing, and I remember my tutor saying, you're going to be working in features, like, you're really cut out for this kind of stuff. You're going to get snapped up. Yeah, and then it didn't work for 4 years. And then started off making brews. Never ever think you're better than anything else, and never look down your nose at what anyone else is doing. When you're on a shoot, one day you're the dude with the massive camera, and there's a dude there with a little camcorder, don't be looking down your nose at him, because tomorrow you might be sent out with that little camcorder and he might have the massive one. And just don't get an ego about the work. I know people who work on features and hate it because it's horrible and everyone on it's horrible and the hours are horrible and they don't get paid at the end. I know people that work in telly and you can't get anything done because it has to go through so many different people, and everything keeps getting changed and they hate it, and the hours are horrible and the commute's really horrible. And my job, I work with people that I really like. My hours are what I want, so I say no to a lot of stuff, and I enjoy it. And no one's ever heard of anything that I do. Well, some stuff. I was doing some Champions League stuff. People heard about that, but I'm not interested in football. So it's a job. It's what you're going to spend a lot of your life doing. It doesn't matter what it looks like to anyone else. That's once you're in the game, no one cares. It's only your mum that's bothered about telling her mates that you work at the BBC or anything like that. All you want to do is enjoy your work and have a laugh with the people that you work with. I have done pretty much everything I can think of, and I've done stuff that I thought, yeah, I'm never going to do that. I've done it. I've done it. You think of what you could be working on as an editor, and I've cut it. You just look back at the experience you had on the job. No one cares about the prestige of it. I can have a laugh on something for a school. You know what I mean? If I'm doing something for a school, I can have a better laugh on that than I can have, doing some stuff in Brazil for, like, I don't know, Jaguar. Petered out, that, didn't it? Petered out. When you're an editor, and especially when you're freelance, you'll have a workflow. But that workflow has to be, I don't know, it's sort of modular. So in an ideal world, your workflow would be like this. And, you've got a week to do it or whatever. Something when you're an editor is you need to know the rushes. Because otherwise, how do you know what's got to go where? You need to know all the GVs, you need to have an understanding of everything that's been shot. You need to watch through all the interviews, watch through all the GVs. You might double time it, but you still got to know everything. If you've got 2 hours to do an edit, you can't do that. So you need to be able to cut your cloth accordingly. You need to be able to expand and contract your workflow. So it's still the same workflow, but it might be like the kind of like workflow like the one that you didn't pay the subscription, like the trial version. So it's like the light bit. So it's like, oh yeah, so I'm not going to watch through all the rushes. I'm just going to go to last take and see if the last takes are all right. Yeah, they are. Oh, this one isn't. I'll go a take back. Oh, that one is. The second to last was on that. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. And then see if I can build something out of what I've got. And then it's like, yeah, I can. Brilliant. But you might say, look, this edit, it's really important that I know what's happening, what they're saying, because it's like an emotional one, or, and so you'll quickly watch the whole thing on double time, and you'll be like, that bit. And then you go from like a 30-minute interview, and normally where you'd sort of shave it down in iterations to like 7 passes until you've got it down to like 3 minutes, 2 minutes. You might say, well, I've only got an hour to do this, so I'll watch the whole thing, and then in 2 passes I'll go from like 30 minutes to 5, and I'm not gonna mess about. You just like, look, I'm in brutal mode here. I have not got the time. I've got to kick doors down. And that's the mode that you're in. And then you're like, I cannot mess about with music because I haven't got the time. So I'm just going to pick a track that I already know is going to work on this kind of thing. So especially if you know you've got a really tight turnaround, you should be doing a lot of thinking before you sit down. Don't just sit down and like, someone's going to make. I remember doing like It was like the O2 fireworks on the South Bank in London, and basically they were getting shot at midnight. We needed to have something out at like 1:30. So I'd pretty much done an edit with the music. I put the music down, cut it. It was going to be a minute long. So I cut the music to do already on the timeline. So that was in the bag. I put the in and out graphics on it. I kind of knew it was going to start with a countdown. So the music was going to go 3, 2, 1, and then there'd be a massive bang. A load of it'd come down a bit where there's an interview bit, and then it'd go massive at the end. And then when it came in, I didn't even watch the rushes. I just like scrambled through until I saw something that I need a thing that does this to fit the bump in. I need this to do that, bump in. I need some countdown stuff. There's the countdown, bump. And I just plopped it in. Quick watch of it, made sure there was no pops and clicks, made sure that the colours were right, and just banged it out. And the client said to me, when the client came in and watched it, they were dead emotional, and like, that was better than watching the actual fireworks. I was like, nice one. That's what's good about your job. That's when you feel great about your job. And also, there was also the thing of people were like, you're never going to be able to do it. It's like, everyone was doubting it. And sometimes I like being put in a situation where people think it can't be done. Or if you've got a chance to blow someone away, like someone set aside a day to do an edit, you're like, right, I'm going to get this done at they're going to have it for 3:00. Like, they already think that's a tight deadline. I'll show them. And just, set up little challenges for yourself. There's always an opportunity to blow a client away. I've got a little folder called resources, and it's got things in it like generic music for this type of edit. So I don't, if I know that I'm going to do an edit and it's like, this is like a story of kind of like someone that overcame a thing and then in the end it was great and they raised a lot of money for it. Yeah, I've got a folder that's got that kind of music in it. I've got a folder that's got like, anamorphic flares in or I've got a folder that's got, and they're just like little things that a certain type of edit will always have, like glow effects for just, and so I don't have to like reinvent the wheel every time. There's a sound effect like a, bing or something like that, or like a whoosh, or like record scratch. I've got a little folder with all those in because you're always going to need that little, your own little personal toolkit. If you're an idealist and you think I'm never going to sell my soul, I'm going to be an editor that stays true to the kind of stuff I want to do, then you should be making your own films, and you should be a video artist, because that is not the job. That you're not making your stuff for you. You're making stuff for other people. And it's like being a commercial artist. It's like being an illustrator. So it's creative, it's you, it's your style, but it has to fit the brief. So there's a difference between being an illustrator and being a fine artist. I see editing as an art, and I see what I do as an art. It's just a commercial art. So I see things in terms of the art of it, and you can apply that sensibility to everything you do, and like that is what I do, and and that's why your stuff's good. Like if you think I'm just chopping up a corporate job here, then you're never going to carry on working, because you have to bring your talent and creativity and art to a corporate job, and then people would be blown away and be like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. You're like, yeah, of course it is, mate, I did it. You know what I mean? If you're interested in art and you're interested in different forms of art, so for instance, you can carry a lot of it over into this stuff that you're doing, which you wouldn't think you could do. But for instance, right, say, imagine you like your EDM, and you're like, the bit at the drop where it kind of like all kind of like builds up, and then there's like a pause, and then bang, it comes in. And when it hits massive. And you might have a bit in your edit where you like, this bit has got to really hit with impact. So what they do in dance music is they'll make the bit that gradually, in the kind of 30 seconds before the drop, they'll take all the bottom end out, and you don't notice it, but all the bottom end goes, so all the bass comes out of it, and it'll go quieter, but you don't notice it, so that when the bass and everything comes back in, it hits miles harder. So you might say, right, so in the edit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow the cuts down and, you know, make the music. I might take all the bass out. You could even make shots beforehand slightly darker. It's all so that you wouldn't even know. And then when this like impactful moment comes in, bang, it's all back. Because you've just taken an idea from somewhere else and applied it to what your thing is. Now the thing that you're doing might just be like some corporate promo, but you're using your influences to make that thing, you know, that might be the best impactful moment that anyone's ever seen, and it's like sat there in some like, you know, advert for a carpet fitter. But you know, you need to be, that's how you make your job interesting, and that's how you make your stuff great. That's how your stuff is better than everyone else's, because no one else is thinking like you're thinking, because you're an artist. If you've got something that's pretty dry, and then when people watch it back, they're like, what? Like I did it was a campus tour for Huddersfield University, and it was basically just people walking around Huddo, and I was kind of like in from the beginning, so I kind of like came up with the idea, storyboarded it, went on the shoot, and then edited it, and the final thing was bonkers, and everyone loved it, and it was oh mate, it was like a crazy fever dream. That's when you can really shine, is when you make something that shouldn't be any better than it is, miles better than it should be. That's where you know, and you can say like, you know, say whoever your favorite artist is, it's like, say you're like, I don't know, I'm into Gilbert and George, right? How would they do a campus tour? Or you might see something and it blows you away, and you're like, I am going to apply that to this my next job. I even have a laugh where you go, whatever the next job I'm doing is, I'm going to do that. And it's not, you're not saying regardless of what the client says, but you're just saying I'm going to go in with that sensibility, because your opportunities to blow people away come with the dry, boring stuff. They don't really come with the exciting stuff. Editing can sound a bit like an office job, and it can sound not as exciting, you know, as going out shooting stuff. It can sound like, what are the opportunities to travel and meet people? It just sounds like a boring office job. It's whatever you want to be. So you can go and work in like a post house, and you can sit with the same people every day, and stuff can come in, and you know, you can kind of do a 9 to 5, and that's cool. You know, that might be what you want to do. You might just want your own little table, and I've got my cup of tea here, and I've got me you know, me little figures on top of the speaker, and that's cool. And you can do that, and certainly in lockdown, you know, we're all just kind of like working from home and remoting into places, or getting stuff we transferred over to us. So you are kind of like, yeah, you just sat there just editing on your laptop or whatever. But before lockdown, I was, and through my whole career, I've spent a lot of time traveling all over the world, editing stuff for live events or on-site stuff that needs to be edited on site, doing like car launches and football stuff, and doing gig concerty stuff, and I've worked in China and Japan and the the States and South America and all over Europe and Russia, and I've worked all over everywhere and a lot, and I felt like I was living in Germany at one point. So you can do a lot of traveling, because that's the other thing as well. So if you're working in telly, you're really not going to do much traveling, because all the footage comes back and you just edit in an office. Whereas if you're working in corporate, there's so much stuff, there's so much eventy stuff that you need to be on site to edit, that you'll do a hell of a lot of traveling. And I like both. You end up with like experiences that when you're having them, you're like, I can't believe I'm sat here doing this. Like, or these people are taking me seriously. And you end up in such like ridiculous situations with like sheikhs and what have you, or like in a billionaire's mansion, and the dude's like, you're getting drunk with a billionaire in his mansion. Like, you'll have a really good life doing this kind of stuff. It's whatever you want it to be, really. I would say that you need to get used to pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and saying yes to stuff that you feel like you might not be ready for. Just say yes to it. You'll be all right. People ask me, what is the best edit system? Is it Premiere? Is it Final Cut? Is it Avid? DaVinci? And the answer is, there isn't a best one. Now, if you use Avid, you will always say Avid is the best, because most people that use Avid are snobs. And I'm saying that as someone that used Avid for 17 years. Each edit system will do something better than another one. There's things that Premiere does that you would wish Avid did, but there's things that Avid does that you think, oh, come on, Premiere. And DaVinci does stuff like DaVinci's audio is miles better than Premiere's, and so it's the one that you're used to, basically, because it's always hard to keep on top of everything, and it's hard to learn something new, especially when it's your day job, because you need to hit the ground running and all that. But I use Premiere most now, but that's not set in stone. This is my normal setup. So it's my laptop and my iPad as a second monitor. Now, obviously, because I'm doing a screen record, I'm only going to be using one monitor. But usually this would be my second screen here, and I would flip between this, and I always make loads of notes. I'll keep the brief up here. I'll mark off stuff that I've done. I'll write things down that I know I'm going to forget when the client mentions them. It's always really important to make loads of notes, because you'll forget stuff, and when you get buried in the edit, you'll forget things that someone told you like 3 days ago, or it'll be a chain of emails that the information's lost in. The other thing that I do is, because you work with lots of different clients, I have little crib sheets for each client. So if I'm going to go work in at one place, I'll just launch it up. It's got all the passwords, server, all the different things that place, and also the kind of workflow that place has, because different places are all slightly different. So anything that I need to know, even down to like the door codes to get in, I'll have each client I'll have a separate note for that. Okay, so after that load of ramble, I'm going to show you some practical stuff. There's not really a theme to it. I'm just going to kind of go through Premiere and point out some stuff that you might not know, and show you how things should be done, rather than perhaps how you might be doing them. Okay, so I've opened Premiere, and I've already made a bit of a start on this edit, just so that you don't have to watch a load of boring stuff. First thing that I do when I jump on any system is I go to the preferences, go to autosave, and I make sure it's set to automatically save every 5 minutes. Maximum project versions 300. I have it saving every 5 minutes because Premiere is not the most stable software in the world. And when I know you do have to wait for it to save, and it's a bit of a pain because it'll take like 5 or 10 seconds. But if you leave it at quarter of an hour and you've got deadlines, it will fall over The closer you get to the deadline, that's when it's going to fall over, and you don't want to have to do quarter of an hour's work again, because you can do, especially when you're on fire, you can do so much work in quarter of an hour that you can't even remember what you did, and redoing stuff is awful. So I always have it at 5 minutes, and obviously if it's saving every 5 minutes, you're going to get a lot of autosaves, so you need to have it at 300, and the file size is so small that it doesn't even matter. Set that to millions. What's the other thing that I generally do? Oh yeah, audio. You see how you've got automatic waveform generation? I always have that unchecked because I don't want it to automatically generate waveforms for footage that I'm not going to look at, because when you bring stuff in, it will be generating the waveforms in the background, which is going to slow Premiere down, and I just want to get stuck into it. So rather than it work out waveforms for GVs that I don't need the audio off, I just switch that off because it keeps everything quick. And if you do need to get the waveform off something, well, I'll show you how you do that later. When you look at the project window, top level view of it should always be just a bunch of folders, bins. It should be tidy like that. And when you open a bin, the things that are in it are what you'd expect to be in it. So in sequences, it's just sequences, rushes. It's just rushes, you know, and assets will be stuff that the client supplied, you know, and effects will be bits of graphics and things like that. But it should always be, it doesn't really matter what you call them, as long as someone else would know what it was. So if you ever have to hand the client the project, you should always assume that someone else is going to see your project, so it should be tidy and professional. Come on. So my process is, I will have a rushes dump. So you can see here that I have pulled all the rushes in onto a timeline, and that way I don't have to go in here, double click and see what things are. I can just scrub along the timeline and see what I've got. And what I'll also do is kind of arrange the timeline so that roughly I know what things are. So I know down the front end, this is all interview stuff. And then I know that that's one bunch of GVs. And then I know that that's a separate bunch of GVs. And every time there's a break, it'll be different stuff. So stuff that's grouped together is from the same location or similar stuff and stuff. So I just organize it for myself so that I can quickly jump to wherever I need to go to, and I know what's there. I know that's an interview with that dude. I know that's an interview with that dude. I know that's a GV. Okay, so then after that, I will do a first pass on the interviews. So I'm just going to go through the interview content and cut the crap out. So what I will do, I come off the mouse and I'll play at double speed. So let's start here. Also as well, if I look down here at the, come on mouse. Also, if I look down at the waveforms, I can kind of see where his answers start and stop. You see how it's a broken waveform, by the way? This is what I was going to say. To make your complete waveform, press G, and then I'm not going to do anything to it. I just gain by 0. Okay, but you see how it's made it go and look at the waveform. That's how I get my waveforms up. So if I was a gambling human being, I would say that his answer finishes there. So it does, that's where his answers stop. So I could just go through chopping out those gaps. So what I do is put an in point in, go through, out point, chop it out. I'll probably just whiz through to the next one. In point, whiz through, go back, chop it out. And all I'm doing to chop it out is pressing the apostrophe button, in point, and this is just so that I've got just chopping it out. There's only one more bit, so I might as well do that as well. Get rid of that. Right, so that's my pass one of the interview. So that's just the interview tidied up all the crap out. Now, what I can do here especially when you're using synced stuff, there'll be like, the audio will have a big clap on it and it'll put a massive spike. But once you've got a tidy version, all the crap is out of it and it's just the level of the person speaking. So I could grab everything there, go to G and say normalize all peaks to 0 dB. And if you watch the timeline, see how it brought all the audio up? The reason I do that after the clap is because the clap will make a peak and it will have that as the top, so it won't really lift everything else up because there's an unusual spike. If I take that out, then it'll bring everything up. It'll make sense to you when you do it. So I've brought all his level up because you've got to do that at some point, might as well do it now. So I've got an IV pass 1, I will duplicate that. And I'll have an IV pass 2. Double click it. The amount of times that you make a new sequence, you don't double click it and you start altering the old one. Do it all the time. Right, so say I want to get rid of that. So if I go from when I want to come in there, out point, so put an in point at the beginning, out point, chop it. We had to move because my parents didn't have jobs, they were running motors. Then maybe I want to get rid of this bit. In point, out point, chop it. In point, out point, chop it. You know. So this is how I quickly go through, you know, my content. Now I'm kind of at a stage where this is all the stuff that I want. Imagine I had to make all the GVs picture-in-pictures that ran in the background of the interview. And I have them have the picture-in-picture over here. And you're like, oh, that's great. But say they've all got to land in the same place, so that can't just kind of like be sort of anywhere. That's got to be bang on. So you can see I've got these buttons here. I've only got a few little buttons on the program window. They're all I use really for this. Comparison view, if I want to side by like A/B check a grade or something. Comparison view. I've got take a picture of the screen, so just the footage on the program monitor, takes a picture and I can send it to the client, say, is this what you meant with the layout of the picture-in-picture or whatever. I've got show guides and show rulers. So if I show rulers, I will pull guides down to line up my picture-in-picture. So what I'll probably want to do is divide the screen up so it's got equal borders and then work the picture-in-picture from that. So all I'm doing is pulling these rulers out. You know, you've used this a million times. The only thing is, right, say I want it to go to 5 here, or saying 50, right? If I want to bring it 5 back here, well, it starts at like 1900 and a bit, and I can't really, how do I line that up? How do I make that come in 5? I've got to go in and count that. It's because I've got the ruler set to pixels, and you need it set to %, and then straight away, now the 100's bang on there. So I can easily manipulate it to where I need it to be, and the same with these. 595. And then pull the picture-in-picture, put the guide in for the picture-in-picture where I want that to be, and then move it to where it's going to go. Pull the guide down. So now I've got a box, and I can knock that off and put it back on whenever I want. So the next GV that comes up is this one. I want it to sit in that box. Now, rather than do all that tweaking, I'll just copy the first clip, Command C, and then I'll option Command V. So that is paste attributes, and the attributes that I'm pasting from the first clip are just the motion stuff. which is position, scale, rotation, blah, blah, blah. So I copy that onto this, and then it puts that clip in the corner. And I can highlight multiple clips, and I end up doing this a lot in Premiere, copying and pasting attributes to things. Something I do notice though is you sometimes it's only the second time that you paste that it actually does it. I don't know why that is. Something I use a lot is reveal in project. So if I want to find this clip in the rushes bin, I will go to reveal in project, and it reveals it in the project, so I can see where it is. It's there. I can also do revealing finder, so it finds out where the actual footage is. I end up using that a lot just to navigate back to the finder window that I was on. You can also find out from the sequence. You go reveal sequence in project, which is there. You can go here and go reveal the project in Finder. So it's basically quick ways of finding where everything is. It's really important that your timeline is kind of organized correctly. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So say I was going to put some text over this, and this guy is, I don't know, I do football, I don't know who anyone is, so I don't know who this dude is. You're going to laugh at me for that. Football dude. So football dude is text. Now, you see how I've put the text on V2, but I've got GVs on V2. You should never have different things on the same layer. So that text should be on V3, because I've got interview content on V1 and A1, GVs on V2 and A2, then it'll be like graphics on V3. And the reason why you do that is because anyone else can jump on and say, it says, oh, all the text needs changing. Well, they know all the text is going to be on here. There's not going to be anything hidden down here that they miss. And also, you can turn a layer off and all the text goes. You can turn a layer off and all the GVs go. So you don't want, and I hate it when you see like these kind of timelines and, you know, the shit all over everywhere. It's just, that's not how you do it. And if you want to be taken seriously, do it like this. That's not me being an idiot. It's just true. Okay, so we're going to do some audio now. And I'll just say, I've just been watching some of this back that I've just been recording, and I've realised that my hand is all over the mic. So I'll try not to do that now. Right, Premiere's got a bit of a weird way of doing the audio. So what I'll do, right, I'll lob some music on. I'll play it and you'll hear it this time.
Recién lo había cumplido, nos tuvimos que mudar porque...
Okay, I mean, that is not the music that you'd use. But what you want to do for sorting out the audio and doing the audio mixes, if you go to Audio Workspace, and then suddenly you see Track Mixer and this Essential Sound thing. The Essential Sound thing is the bit that is... It's kind of confusing if you've never used it before, because it's not like any kind of audio software. So I'll start by highlighting the audio of the dialogue. And I will tell Premiere that it's dialogue. And it's got all sorts of things in here that you can check and uncheck, loudness, clarity. You can do bits and bobs in there. But basically, I just want to tell it that that's dialogue. And the reason for that is because I'm going to call the music music. And what I want to do is duck the music against the dialogue. Ducking means that the music will drop down whenever anyone's speaking. So the music track is looking for any gaps in the dialogue track. And if there's a gap, it'll bring the music up. So if I go to my audio presets here, you will see if I put ducking on, I've got presets for ducking. So I've got duck against everything, hard vocal ducking, punchy as very punchy ducking, smooth vocal ducking, pumpy, So I'll do a smooth vocal ducking. Now, you're not gonna see anything happen just yet. But I'll quickly just go through it's all mouse batteries. Oh, it's back. So the sensitivity is how sensitive the duck is. Duck amount is by how much it drops the audio, and the fades is how long it takes to duck the audio. So I'll generate keyframes, and if you look at the music track on the timeline, it will pop keyframes in, right. So you see it's basically dip, 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 and then it pops up at the end, because that's smooth vocal ducking. And that's because the fades that I've got here are 1200 milliseconds. There's not time for them to come up and go down again. If I do really quick fades, generate keyframes, you'll see it, yeah, it's popping up all over everywhere. So I'll play that and you can see what it sounds like. It'll sound a bit bizarre.
Vendérselas al señor, que me diera algo y ahí juntaba plata para poder comprar algo en mi casa.
See what I mean? So you wouldn't, well, not on this one, you wouldn't have it by that much. Duck amount drops by 24. So when it's not ducked, it comes back up to 0. That's a hell of a plummet, minus 24, because it means when it goes off, you can't hear it. So I probably have the duck amount about, say, 10. Generate keyframes. Now I play it.
Dar algo en mi casa. Después tuve la época que cuidaba coches también.
So I'm just showing you the principle of it. I'm not doing a proper edit here, am I? Oh, look, she shouldn't have seen that. I'll get rid of that. One of the last things that I'll do is just a bit of glue to pull everything together. I will go to the master track. So these tracks here coincide with the tracks on the timeline. A1, A2, A3, A4, and then there was a master track. On the master, I will put a multiband compressor and I will set that to broadcast. Multiband means it is compressing different frequencies at the same time. So it's got 4 frequencies. It's got a low end, 2 mids, and a high end. And it compresses those separately. And then I'll probably just drop it down to sort of like -4 so that you know that it's not going to nail it into it's not going to peak into the red. So I'll play it.
Todo por las calles, digamos, por los teléfonos, buscando la gente que tiraba las tarjetas. O si un día andaba por ahí y veía una de las tarjetas, las guardaba para que...
So when it's on, it's all a little bit louder, and you can see that on the VUs. It's pretty subtle on this, but it's a good idea because it just pulls the music in to... It pulls all the tracks together. It's like a glue compressor. Yeah, I mean, God, I could spend all day telling you stuff. But the main thing that I want to tell you is have great careers doing this. It is a great job. You'll do a lot of traveling, you'll meet a lot of people, and you'll do a lot of stuff. And it's a nice creative thing to do. Just remember, never get a big head. Never think you're better than you are, because like I know from as long as I've been doing it, you'll always have the rug pulled from under you. You'll get made redundant. The work will dry up. You just can't walk around being cocky, because if you've been around the block and you've done a bit, you know that you don't know when your time's going to be up in this game. And you know, you just got to be nice to people, because you never know when you're going to need them. So yeah, be nice. Thanks for listening.